See, it wasn't trying to
It's
go in
Richard
that
Gere, isn't
direction. It was
it? Oh,
not trying to
whichever.
go in that direction.
Porque no le dos. Zach, this is your show. Go ahead.
All right.
That is not where I was trying to go. I'm just making that. I'm trying to.
Hello and welcome. I am Zach, aka Conan_Librarian. I'm an emissary with Obsidian Portal, campaign management website, and I am super excited to be joining the three fellows from Tabletop Journeys. They run a fantastic podcast, whether it's actual play, content review, world building, and most recently and still active is the Kickstarter that they're running right now. I am super excited. I put out a call to creators, people that run shows and talk about content and talk about classes and everything, tabletop, D&D, whatever it is. And I was personally curious. I know I'm not the only one. What makes them tick behind that microphone, behind that webcam? Not just what they think about a book, but why they think these things, what brought them to what they're doing, and why they want to keep doing it, and what motivates them to do that. So, guys, introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Sure.
Oh, you know what? No, don't introduce yourself just yet because I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
I want to know, what was your first childhood pet, too?
Ooh, that's an amazing question. I love it because I know the answers for the other two. They're fantastic stories, much better than mine actually. But Zach, thank you so very much for having us on again. I appreciate that we can get a second swing at this. Really, really glad to go ahead and be here and to talk to you and your audience today. So I'm Josh. I am the resident tech guy and one half of the short guys on the podcast. And my childhood pet. So my family has always had dogs. There was we had a golden retriever that was born the day before I was. She unfortunately passed away when I was about 15 years old. But since we had another kind of like half beagle, half collie mix named Princess. I had a couple of Jack Russell Terriers for a while. If your audience looks real carefully in the background, they may see. Yeah, there he is, right there. My sleeping Boston Terrier, who you will undoubtedly hear snoring on radio tonight. So
Awesome.
I'm gonna let Glenn go, and then I'll pull up the rear on this one.
Okay. Hi, I'm Glenn from Tabletop Journeys. Wait, was I introducing myself or just talking about my pet?
Well, we
Well,
also
you just
both,
introduced
yeah.
yourself,
Oh, all
so
at the same
might as well
time.
throw in the pet.
Got you. Fair enough. Let's start that again. Hey, I'm Glenn. Pretend that first part didn't happen. First pet's complicated. Because my mom was always a pet person. So like I've got a few that fade in and out of my memory that I barely remember. My earliest pet memory is traumatic. We had a poodle named Cuddles that got attacked by what I remember as a Doberman Pinscher. It was actually a German Shepherd.
Whew.
First pet that was mine, I Lennied it.
Oh.
Mice and men.
You are coming in hot on this one.
Yeah.
maybe his stories aren't
So,
that
Wow!
What the what?
I didn't mean to. All right. So the way that went down was I had a hamster.
No.
I don't even remember its name. Right. And you remember the old stupid habit trails? Those are fun for the hamster, but they're really not that safe because everything's too movable. Well, I wanted the little sucker to go up into the tower so I could, feed him treats. And he didn't want to go up in the tower. So I laid in wait. And as soon as he was going underneath it, I tried to push it down to make him go up the tower. It didn't work out so well.
Okay.
To be fair, I was young enough that I probably should not have been left unattended with the habit trail and hamster at the time. I predominantly remember it because it was traumatic. But I love pets. This is not a I hate pets and animals story. I'm a huge, huge, huge animal person, believe it or not. Through all this trauma, I persevered.
I hear if you keep digging, you can come back up and out of a hole.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually.
Right? No, I like it down here. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
If you guys
He's
could toss
tall
me
enough, he can
down,
handle
if you guys could toss me down, like I don't know, one of those
Treats?
0G recliner chairs,
Some ho-hos, yeah.
and some snacks.
some ring dings or something.
Perfect.
But I do have others. We had my first great pet memory comes from I do not remember the exact breed, but it's a Briard that's got this crazy long shaggy hair like a mop dog, but it's the size of a small pony. All right, it wasn't the size of a small pony. I was in kindergarten. It was probably 80
50
Regular
pounds.
size. I knew you were.
No,
yeah.
no, no. It was big. This was a big dog. It was somewhere between 80 and 100 pounds. It was in
Ooh.
the large category. Um, and they're great with families. Like if I could tell you the name, they're an amazing dog for families, and they take care of kids and nanny and everything. And I literally could ride him around like a pony. It was great. Probably wasn't good for him, but I didn't weigh that much, and he seems to enjoy it. So
That is a happy memory. I'm glad you got one out of there.
Yeah.
right,
So how do you
careful
follow
what you
that,
ask,
ladies and
man.
gentlemen? This is how you follow that. I thought we were just asked to tell our first pet. I didn't think we had to tell the whole pet saga. But
It was
It
just supposed to be
was,
the
but
first
it's
pet,
just
but
too
I didn't know what to
good.
call my
Okay.
first pet because they were all
So
jumbled.
fair enough. So I, for once, was not the long-winded one. But I'm gonna change that right here and right now.
Then you are the long-winded one.
Yeah, maybe. You
Yeah.
know, true to form. So my first pet is not a pet I particularly cared for. It was an attempt at a pet that lasted 2 days. This particular pet came into our home, pissed on everything I owned, including my bed, and I made my mom take it away the next day. And I did not have a pet for probably another couple of years. I pretty much all done with that particular type of pet for forever at that point. Um,
Did it
then
go meow?
yeah, it sure did.
Because
Um,
you had a severe hatred of cats when we were
yeah.
younger.
So that was it for them. However, when I got to kindergarten, I was probably about 2 or 3, maybe 3 at that time. When I got to kindergarten, uh, we had guinea pigs, and I got to take one of the guinea pigs home and keep it forever and ever and ever. And so this guinea pig, which I was told they tend to in captivity live about 2, maybe 3 years, lived with me for pretty close to 9 years or something, for a long
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
And her name was Squiggly the Bear. I named my character when we played Babies and Broadswords after this guinea pig. And she was an amazing guinea pig. She was awesome. She loved to roam around the house. She hated being captive. If you closed the lid on her cage, she would bounce in the cage until the top popped off, and she would invariably, when she got up enough energy to bounce the top up, it would fling her out of the cage and she'd be on the ground. And for the longest time, I would get in trouble for like months for leaving the cage open because the guinea pig was running around the house, which my mom was not pleased with. And so what then happened was we found out one time when we closed the cage and we were home that day that Squiggly was doing this on her own. So I was exonerated, though I don't think my mom ever apologized for the amount of punishment I had over the preceding months. But, neither here nor there. It was the 70s. Um, but
Hey,
uh,
water under the bridge, man. She's just
yeah,
like, yeah, we'll just
it
move
is
on.
what it is. And invariably, I was that kid who probably did something I didn't get caught for at the time. So probably owed her a little on the back end anyway. But yeah, so Squiggly was a great pet. She tragically passed on what was one of the worst birthdays of my entire existence. I was 13 years old. I had just moved to a new town, started school, my first day of school, got sent out of school because I needed to get a shot, so I had to get a shot. Then went back to school, had a terrible experience in that middle school. Came back home. We're eating dinner. I was going to take the lettuce because Squiggly used to like a bunch of lettuce piled on top of her, and then she would spin in circles and eat her way out of the lettuce like a little cyclone of guinea pig teeth and lettuce pieces. It was like the funnest thing to watch because she would literally just spin in a circle till the lettuce was gone. And I put the lettuce on, and she didn't move, and that's kind of how I found her. And dinner on my birthday, and we hadn't even lit the candles yet. So that was my sad story about my first pet. She was an amazing guinea pig. Love her very much, and named one of my characters after her. Also had an Alaskan Keeshond. The family had one when I was a teen. Lady who was a wonderful animal. She was beautiful. She was a lot of fun. I used to when when I got back from basic training, I was still living at home because I went to basic training as a teen. Used to take her for runs, and I remember there was this girl that I was very much into. Um, and I thought it'd be really cool. I'm going to be this big strapping guy, fresh out of basic training. I'm going to be running. I got this amazingly gorgeous dog. what could be more irresistible than that? And lady was a lazy dog. She hated running. She didn't mind walking. She hated when I went running. And she literally went to sleep in the middle of the road in front of this girl's house. Cold out. I could not get this dog to move. Cars had to go around me. I just sat there, crisscross applesauce in the middle of the street with my head down in shame in front of this girl's house, because it was my John Cusack moment. Basically, it was terrible, terrible. Funny story: she was out of town that week and didn't even know what happened. We're friends to this day, and I still chuckle about that story.
I'm just imagining you hiking her up over your head and just having to sing. If you're gonna say anything, you gotta like really go for
In
it.
your eyes.
So this
I could not
was
lift that dog over my head. Alaskan Keyhounds are beautiful animals. Lady was not particularly fat. She was actually in very good shape, but I wasn't lifting her over my head.
So it looks like we're out of time, Zach. So thanks for that.
yeah, you know, guys, this has been Pet Talks with Zach, City of
And
Portal.
Tabletop
Thanks,
Journeys.
So the reason
Everything's
I ask
about backstory with us. Everything
Yeah.
is about backstory.
The reason I ask a question like that, and for the audience, this is actually not the first time we sat down. When you fellas referenced it before already, but after a failed attempt, a fantastic conversation, but technical difficulties that really should set a land speed record for how bad it went so quickly and then continued to sink like the Titanic. It was still a fantastic conversation. And the reason I asked a question like that, I knew nobody would be short on words for something like that, is because I think everything influences our creativity. Everything impacts. You named one of your characters after your hamster, after your guinea pig.
Guinea pig, yeah.
And that may seem like a small thing to some people, but to me, I think everything we approach when it comes to content creation, creativity, even just playing a game is influenced by a lot of things in our background. So I have a couple questions for you guys, kind of about your backgrounds, where your approach comes, different things like that. But most importantly, I wanted to ask some questions about your Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So I want a rundown of the basics. I'm really excited for it. But a rundown of some of the basics, and then I've got a few questions, not just about the content, but the Kickstarter itself too, because
Sure.
I think I'm like a lot of people. I made a game. I think it'd be cool to do a Kickstarter someday for it, but I know there are trials and tribulations to a Kickstarter that a lot of people don't know. And I've talked to a few people now that have had successful Kickstarters or some that have tanked. And I hear several kind of key things about it. So I really want to get your take on it. But first, someone tell me about the Kickstarter so everyone can get as excited as I am, and your
Sure.
backers already too.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and dive in here, and then you guys can fill in the gaps where I leave them. So yeah, our Kickstarter for our next project, our next book, Heroic Subclasses of the Multiverse, really began as a Kickstarter to do these 12 subclasses that we'd conceived of. They're well into playtesting at this point. We had our first round of playtesting earlier this week and got some amazing feedback. So really kind of looking forward to fold those in. But the campaign is doing very, very well. We're very excited. We have about 3 weeks left in the campaign at this point. It runs until the 20th of September. And we've already crashed through 2 of our stretch goals. We're about at this point, we're about $100 away from our next stretch goal. So we've already added a whole suite of backgrounds and feats to those subclasses. We've already
Congrats on
added
that, by the way, just to interrupt. That is
that?
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I said congrats on that, because that is
Thanks very much.
fantastic.
We're very happy about it. We were really happy, and there's a reason why we put that one first, honestly, is because we really wanted to write the backgrounds and feats for these subclasses. And then the second stretch goal was our stuff tier. We have magic and mundane items to go along with these characters. And like I said, we're about $100 away at this point from adding some NPCs to go ahead and help you make campaigns and stories to feature these subclasses. So yeah. But the campaign's going really, really well. We're very, very happy with it. It's been very successful. We're excited to go ahead and see how far it goes.
And the book itself is going to bring you a subclass for each of the 12 classes, core classes in the player's
Yeah.
handbook. Um, and we have them divided into kind of categories because, we're subclasses of the multiverse and not all coming from the same place. So we have um, 3 from a city or urban type environment, the metropolitans, 3 from a nautical or Pirates of the Caribbean style environment, and they're from the Boiling Seas, which is a world that is under creation. Um, 3 from the lands of the shadows that exist just beyond the mortal realm. Dum dum dum. Are the shadow dwellers. You can pick up the pieces on exactly what that realm might be, but it's
Or
on
plug and
Kickstarter,
play
so
into anywhere you feel it would fit.
exactly.
Yep.
And the last 3 are what are the last 3?
The
The
Outlanders.
Outlanders.
The Outlanders,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
the
Those who live on the
Outlanders,
fringe of
those from
society.
far
Yeah.
afield.
Yeah.
So the fringes of society, way out in the far traveler
Hinterlands.
background, and some of those other backgrounds for like the people from way out there would be great with them, but we'll have some new ones in there for you to go with them as well. Yeah.
We're exceptionally excited about this. One of the most gratifying parts, or one of the most gratifying parts of this whole project, is the fact that we were fully funded within just over 72 hours. Like, it
Right.
was a shade past 72 hours. So much, or just on, or yeah, right around that, in that neighborhood. So it was really positive feedback right off the get go. We did a number of innovative things. I won't claim the brainchild on some of those things. That was a lot of Josh's back of the house work, to come up with pledge tiers, backer tiers that were enticing, meaningful, and really fit not only what we want to do creatively, but also fit our methodology and the way we envision this community and what we want to add to the community. So, the project from start to finish has been a labor of love. There has been a lot of labor involved in that, but a lot of love as well. Um, Josh mentioned we're in our first round of playtesting. That's probably more accurate. Said our first official
Yeah.
rounds plural. We did like 2 of them, 2 sets of them. So a large number of playtesters have signed on and really begun helping us flesh these things out, uh, do some fine tuning on the mechanics. But at least 2 of the play classes have had abilities and features, and some of the items that we have planned have been in place or been being played in homebrew games for a year or more.
Yep.
One of the well received abilities from the playtest group that I ran, um, has actually been in use for almost 2 years in its original form. And that playtest led me to make the changes that led to what we have now. And now we're doing some
Yeah.
final. This isn't just being played at a home table. This is going to be part of a product. So we wanted to really make the elements more balanced than they were. And so that's kind of what we're doing with our playtesting. Principal
Yep.
writing has been done for a while on the subclasses. Principal editing has been done for a while on the subclasses. And now we're just putting it in front of a larger audience so we can say, what do you like? What do you not like? This has been in our
Mhm.
heads for a while and in our machines for a while. So let's see what other people see with it so we can get
Yeah.
it kind of uh, filled out correctly. So that's kind of where we are with that. But
Yep.
the first stretch goals, basically, as we got close to it, we started getting first drafts on that. So the entire group of first stretch goals, I think just about, are all in first draft stage. We're starting to do the editing on those already. And I know we've already started plotting our ideas and getting rough outlines for the items for the second stretch goal at this point. And we're starting principal writing on those. And with the third stretch goal right on the horizon, I know I've got a lot of my ideas on paper, various notepads, and they're going to start getting committed to um, our our process here very soon. So we're always a little bit ahead of the next goal because we're anxious to get this stuff written. Like, there are ideas that we have when we set up those stretch goals. We're like, that would be awesome to do. We're gonna, when the people show us that that's what they want, then we're gonna be ready for it and be able to give that to them.
That is awesome. I mean, that is. I read Kickstarter descriptions all the time, whether I back them or not, and you get a lot of essentially someone selling. It's a Kickstarter; they're supposed to sell it.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's really easy. The conversation we already had, this conversation, to tell that you guys are not just passionate about the project, but passionate about delivering it to to the audience.
Yeah.
And I think that resonates a lot with me because it's easy to buy a book and say this is impressive content. It's easy to read content and say this is really well written. But the fact that you guys are really driven, all three of you really mentioned the theme of how it impacts, what it does, and kind of what you want to bring for this content. So I guess one of the big questions I would have is uh, a lazy question would be why a Kickstarter, but more so, and I might ask that, I could be very lazy, but what made you want to bring this content to an audience, not just on a Kickstarter platform, but what made you say, we're going to sit down, we're going to bust our asses to do this thing, stress ourselves out, we're going to do a Kickstarter, we're going to take this undertaking
Yeah.
to deliver this content? What drove you guys to say, let's do this for people, let's put this out?
So this project in particular actually started with our last project. So we about 3 or 4 months ago put out our first our first real big book, right?
Yeah.
The Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse. It was a 65-page book with backgrounds and feats and items and spells and all this sort of stuff. And the one thing that book did not have was subclasses. And the reason why that book did not have subclasses is because subclasses are hard. They're really, really tricky. They're really, really difficult to get right. And we realized pretty quickly in that process that if we were going to make that book as good as it came out, and we were very, very, very pleased with that book. But if we were
Indeed.
going to make that book as good as it was, as we wanted it to be at the time, and on time on our self-imposed timeline, and all that sort of stuff, the subclasses were going to be kind of the odd content out because we wanted to go ahead and give them more time to a little bit more time in the oven, a little bit more time to cook, a little bit more time to rise, and definitely more time to play test them because that's super important with subclasses. So we put that book out. The book was fantastic. It was received very well, which is great. And then almost immediately we were like, okay, our next project is going to feature these subclasses. And I think it
That book is
started
called The
with
Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse, by the way, if anybody
yeah,
wants to
exactly,
look it
yeah,
up.
and which is it's available on DM's Guild. You can go check that out on DM's Guild. Yep. Sorry, Zach, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm going to make sure wherever I get this posted, there's going to be links to all your content,
Yeah, great.
Kickstarter, your previous material, because, it's absolutely worth checking out.
It
The
all
first
ties in
book
together,
and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And so like it started where we had, I think it was like 4 or 6 subclass. I think we started off with like 4. We had like 4 subclass ideas. Like we had the ruffian and we had the enforcer, which are the rogue and fighter. Yep. And we had the warlock build because the warlock is kind of built on some of the lore from that book, and I think that Glenn, if I remember correctly, you had a couple from the Boiling Seas, and so we had like
The Bard is the one
4
that
or
was
5.
ready at that point.
Yeah.
The Bard of
And so like we had
Correspondence.
4, and then
And the
pretty
Beast Mind
quickly
was trapped in my head. I hadn't
Yeah.
committed anything to paper at that point, but it was
Yeah.
always in my head. And when we were going to release subclasses, that was
Yeah.
getting trotted out.
Yeah. And so it's like we were at 4, and then like, well, if we're gonna do subclasses, 4 is a weird number. I may actually we may have gotten to 5 because then I think the Beast Mind came out. It's like, well, 5
Right.
is a weird number. So okay, let's go up to 6, and then we can do like 2 sets. We'll do the first set, and then we'll do a second set. And then we got to 6, and they just kind of kept coming. So it's like, okay, well, now we're going to do all 12. And in fact, actually, I think we got up to like 10, and then we were like, okay, now we need a monk and a barbarian. Basically, is basically. And actually, right, we got all the way up to 12, and then realized that that some of them had been written for a very specific campaign setting that involves like dragons and long pointy
lances.
pointy
Yeah.
lances. That's a great example. Exactly right.
With
Yeah.
a new book that
So
just came out last month.
yeah,
Just as
yeah.
an example, though, like a long,
Yeah,
pointy
exactly right. Yeah.
horse riding spear.
Right, exactly,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
dragons, yeah,
and
and so we realized, like, those subclasses maybe deserve their own publication,
on DM's Guild, where
especially,
we can.
especially if we're gonna put it on Kickstarter, yeah, so we wound up kind of having rewrite, but at the end of the day, we wound up with a set of 12, and we thought a lot about kind of how we were gonna put it out. We've been putting all of our stuff out on DM's Guild, up until this point, and DM's Guild as a platform has pluses and minuses, and we wanted to go kind of a different direction and try something new, and do our first Kickstarter. And yeah, I hope that my co-hosts don't mind me saying so. We were a little nervous
Trepidatious.
about doing a Kickstarter. We were a little nervous because, like, the last thing that we wanted to do was have our first excuse me, have our first Kickstarter go out, all the fanfare, all the everything, and have it fail.
Right.
So we did not want that to happen at all. But Kickstarter is kind of like a platform that has kind of that dynamic, right? You want to make sure that there's nothing worse than getting, like, all the way through a project and being like, oh, we're $100 shy of funding, and
It was
right.
definitely big scaredy pantses.
Yeah. Yep. It
It's
totally was. And
well-
we have learned our lesson because we should not have been so scared. So yeah.
Well, there's a couple things that we learned along the way with that, and to fill in some of the backstory there. Originally, those secret subclasses that were taken out of this project, before we decided to do this on Kickstarter, they were well in. We actually had, I think, more of those in than not, and we were
It
well
was
on
half
our
and
way.
half
To,
at that point when we got to
yeah,
6. We had 3 for that area and 3 others.
yeah. And what happened is when we made the decision, let's do this on Kickstarter, for a lot of good business reasons and creative reasons and freedom. At the end of the day, that license is very binding at
On
DM's Guild.
DM's Guild.
It's wonderful for what it is, but once you publish here, you can't publish anywhere else. So we wanted to have the freedom with our content to kind of do with as we please. And so in order to do that, we had to find a different avenue. Kickstarter was the avenue we chose. And so once that decision was made, we were working on things. In fact, if you look at some of our very early pre-release um, uh, information, the that content was still in the project, but about a week, maybe a week and a half, no, certainly no further than 2 weeks before, we did another look at the legalities of the license and said, you know what, we
Yeah.
can't do this. We've got to put some more into this. So
Yeah.
for 2 weeks, in that time, in a very short time frame, we came up with, again, through work we've done in homebrew, ideas we've discussed within the show. So none of these ideas were brand new to us. They were all things that we had been tossing around and had spoken about at various points in time. So we did put together replacement subclasses in the last 2 weeks before the project got started,
Yeah.
so that we had a full set of subclasses to go.
awesome. Well, so something you're talking about, you definitely mentioned, and all of you again mentioned, it's obvious you guys make a great team because you're all touching on the same points. It's almost like you work together and have known each other for a super long time, which I will
We're
also
very
get
well rehearsed
into.
at this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, what does inspire you? When you are, for me personally, and I think like a lot of us, if I'm thinking tabletop fantasy, there are a million books and movies. If I'm thinking sci-fi again, there are a lot of things, whether it's video games or a billion different pieces of media. But I also found, honestly, my kiddos will throw out the most insane things, and suddenly that's a monster, or that's an ability, or that's an adventure I want to go on because it's something new, it's something fresh.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put this out, and I'll die on this hill. I love 4th edition. I have more 4th edition than I do any other system. And I love to go back because 4th edition had so much good splat content that I love just going through, whether it's pictures or whatever it is. It's not just, to me, it's not just a campaign setting. It's not a story you have to follow. I don't have to piece out something I want. I have inspiration. So
Yeah.
what inspires you guys when you're thinking, "Oh, I need a subclass," or "I want to write this,"
Hmm.
or "I want to put together something"?
Man, it might be easier to go ahead and find a list of things that don't inspire us, right?
Right.
Like that's, I mean, and all three of us, I think, cover such a wide berth of material. You know,
Right.
I love like I love books. I am a book hound. I'm the kind of guy that like in Skyrim, like I bought the house with the extra library space just to store all of my books because I couldn't go through a game with and throwing away a book, right? You know, but I mean, I am inspired by like the tiniest passage, the tiniest thing, the tiniest little memento. You know, like I'm just like I'm just driven by the want to create. You know, I've been a creator, you know, most of my adult or my creative life, you know, like from way back when I was in high school. So my bachelor's and my master's are actually both in music. I was a composer, you know, and I started writing when I was probably 13 or 14 years old. And even before that, when I had found poetry, I was writing poetry. It was the awful poetry that 12 and 13-year-old people write, but it was nonetheless I was creating. And that so sort of that spirit has always driven me. And then sort of on top of that, my creativity specifically is drawn by my desire to understand and to break apart and to figure out what makes things work. You know, I say that my master's is in music, but my master's is in theory specifically. And so it's all about taking apart music and figuring out what chords do what and why do chords do certain things. And that's very much something that translates to my professional life where I'm a computer programmer. So it's very much kind of problem solving, that sort of thing. But that's really kind of what drives me, what inspires me is the desire to know how things work by breaking them apart and trying to put them back together again.
Yeah.
That's
J-
awesome.
Yeah, and that particular skill set that Josh has is also why he does such a masterful job of understanding me.
Yeah.
Because when we were back in our college days and we were in some fledgling band that went absolutely nowhere but our friend's living room and the
And
occasional
several
pseudo
bars.
garage, you know, in our heads we were amazing.
Yeah.
You know, we were the 12 people we were playing for was a stadium of 4,000 most of the time. But I when we were writing songs, he just had an understanding because I was better at describing the feeling I was trying to get out of music as a person who's not musically trained in any fashion other than I sing and I have been through chorus and things like that. But I'm not musically trained. I don't understand how to read music. I don't write music per se, but he could play something and I could say, "Oh, I love that, but it should feel more like this, or make it grungier, or make it do something else, you know, a little more of this or that." And we were able to really, I felt, craft in interesting ways because he understood how to take the feeling I was seeking and find the musical notes for that. So very similarly, we do that with our games and the stories we put together. Um, you know, I was going to give a short answer to the question, which is everything inspires me,
Yeah.
negative and positive. Everything, everywhere inspires me. Sometimes it's a dream, sometimes it's a nightmare, um, sometimes it's a childhood memory. You know, I've been writing stories since I got to school. I, for whatever reason, was blessed with being able to read at a very young age. I entered kindergarten reading and writing 4 grade levels ahead of where I was. My mother didn't let me skip grades. So I didn't take regular classes until I was in the 4th grade. But what I was allowed to do was sit through English or the language arts class, specifically when they did creative writing. So every day we had to write in our little writing books. Could still do that today, composition books or whatever. Um, what I did at that time was start writing my own comic book because I wasn't satisfied to write a story. I simply wrote a serial. So like I actually had until circumstances lost that, I actually had an ongoing mini comic book where every day of school, all 180 days, minus the ones I was not allowed to be in school because I was not the world's greatest kid. Um, but all those days of schools, every day I had a different effectively episode of this comic book. It might or this comic strip, effectively what I was doing early, and it eventually became other things. I had taken those stories, turned them into longer form stories, and I have restructured some of those themes that I was writing about in kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade into adventures that I have written. So I've always been about um, figuring out what makes people tick, understanding why people do the way they're doing. I'm the child of immigrants. I grew up, and my mother was, you need to experience as much of this country as you possibly can because you're an American. You were born here. You're the first in our family to be an American, so learn what it means to be an American and be the best one that you can be. When I finally met my father at the age of in person at the age of 33, one of the first things he said to me is, "What's going on in your country?" He said that in a very specific way, that somehow or another, just being here and being one of the early members of my family to be an American citizen, I am responsible for how this country goes. And so for me, a lot of my writing, a lot of my storytelling has to do with breaking down backgrounds. You know, a lot of what I did was with the Metropolitans because it's about class issues. It's about this insular group and how they are affected by people in power and not being in power, or how they get and capture and strive out for their own power. So I tend to write about those types of things. That's where I think I'm best. And family dynamics. I love writing about family dynamics and how those things interplay. Very Shakespearean about that. And one last thing before I turn it over to Glenn, we were working on a project that we'll get into a lot of details when that is finally released. It was for a different publishing company, but one of the comments that was made was one of the chapter titles that I had written was, "Oh, you don't want to do that. It's too much like Shakespeare." I have been so much into Shakespeare most of my life that I don't even recognize I'm quoting it most of the time because it's just who I am. It's how I speak. It's how I write. Like those themes are to me exceptionally universal. And so they show up in variant ways throughout my writing.
Okay,
I
so
love it. I love it.
I'm sorry, Con. You go ahead. If you
No,
had
I was
something else
just
to
saying
say.
I
Okay.
I love it. That's truly inspiring to hear something like that too. You don't hear a lot of I think Shakespeare appreciation or love. It's easy to say, "Oh, I love Shakespeare," and just obviously sound like somebody who ate quiche at a Barnes and Noble, restaurant. That's about the most they know about Shakespeare.
Right. So obviously, based on my two illustrious co-hosts' previous responses and what I'm about to tell you, we've all been storytellers our whole lives of some form or another. Always been creatives creating. Um, I mean, it goes all the way back to when I was a kid too. I won't go into any crazy long detail, but I wrote my very first book, air quotes, when I was in kindergarten by locking myself in the bathroom. Not sure why. I felt safe there, I guess, and copying my favorite book verbatim, word for word, onto notebook paper, which earned me a nice talk, my very first nice talk about plagiarism. But I mean,
That's
I was
a
determined.
big
That's
word
a,
too at that
right.
age.
Um, but it just continued throughout my life, whether it was in D&D, which I started really young too. My dad introduced me when I was 8, or fantasy reading and the gazillion books I've read, the television shows, which all of us draw from TV and literature. We used to run a separate segment of our show called, because we've talked a lot about our Kickstarter, but we are a full-fledged podcast too with APs
Right,
and episodes.
absolutely.
And we used to have an episode style called Side Quests, where we talked about things that inspired us, and they often featured the newest shows that were coming out on TV, or maybe an older show that we'd already watched, or a book. There were anything where we drew inspiration from. So, I mean, if you really want to know what inspires us, you could look up those older titles. There's a lot buried in there. But since then, I mean, when you're looking around and you're creating stories now, whether it's for a subclass, whether it's for an adventure that you're writing, or whether or not you're just building an NPC, you can, I literally draw from everywhere, and I know my compatriots do as well. One of our subclasses, the College of Correspondence, is based off of two things, and I'm going to, neither of these are my IP, they're from other people, but Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series, Thom Marilyn, the Gleeman, who goes out to the villages and everybody's excited to see him and tells stories. Combination of that and, believe it or not, Hamilton from the show, the play Hamilton, and the huge amount of essays and letters that he wrote trying to shape his country for the people, not just for himself. So the College of Correspondence could run a Bardic Mail network, but it also is a Bard of the people who champions the people. They write articles or So that's kind of where they were based off of. In one of my last one shots, I had a new villain that I introduced, the Livingstones, and the the wife is based off of a waitress here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, just because of her whole demeanor. It can literally come from anywhere.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I was going to add that I do a lot of my encounter building literally from places I go. Like
Oh,
I will walk into a school or a college or a building. I know Glenn's going to talk about some of the things he sees in nature because he's big into the outdoors. And I have been in my past. I don't get there that often, nearly often enough now, but I can see architecture in everywhere. Like I am notorious for going through malls. The one thing I love about malls is I'm like, this would be a great action sequence. I literally could go through a mall like this thinking like I'm a movie director. I'm like, if we had this and that, and we could do a scene here and there, and we actually got to not only get to write those fantasies as a content creator, but we got to play that fantasy during one of our actual plays where we played fake creatures that were attacking another fake creature in a mall. And I finally got to do it. Like I've been thinking of this whole mall scene action adventure sequence my whole life, like ever since I first moved to Connecticut and went to the Crystal Mall in Waterford, I wanted to do an action scene in a mall. And we actually got to play that a few weeks ago with Jay Moore's new
Yeah.
TTRPG Faye.
mm.
And brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Wouldn't
Like I so channeled all of those old feelings and those old notes that I used to have when I wanted to set a scene in a mall and like the Wonder Woman 84 movie was not a great film, but that opening sequence with the in the mall, that was it for me. Like I loved it.
you love
That
them
was
all?
for
That
me,
that was
that
the
hit
movie
home.
you could have called it there and left. Fantastic.
Yeah. If it had stopped there, it'd have been the second greatest movie I'd ever seen. I lied. It wouldn't have been that good. But that was a great scene.
At least top 10 scenes.
Yeah, yeah.
And the piece
25.
that Lewanika alluded to, I find inspiration a lot while I'm hiking in the woods. There's at least three creatures and a weird shadow portal thing that have evolved from hikes within the last 6 months, just from things that I've seen that look weird or have an odd shape. Or the shadow portal thing was the end of this big hollow log that was all sprawling and it had fallen. So you're looking at the old root base, but it's hollow going into it, but it had big tendrils coming out of it. It's so pitch black in the center. I was expecting something to crawl out of it at me, and it inspiration. I had to stop and type shit into my phone for a minute before I could keep hiking.
That's awesome. And I think that really speaks to how the three of you both create, excuse me, both create as well as come together to share these experiences to make this content. I think it's easy for content to be a little one toned, even if there's a lot of variety in it. I think bringing your own experience and mixing it with other people is a big thing. I know you're talking about playtesting, and I think a lot of us develop better as storytellers, as even players or content creators, by absorbing what other people do with you when you play, or how they absorb your content and then spit it back out to you, or play it and say, hey, I like this, but, or you see them do something entirely new that you hadn't thought of. um I think it can really help you grow as a creator too, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Uh, and I always go back to the fact that the three of us work well together because, at least in my thought process is, um, my favorite bands were at least 4 member bands, and they have these huge catalogs that were not about any one voice or any one driving force. Like every member of the band had a song that really came through and is somebody's favorite or is among their top favorites. And it's because they were able to put together some of my favorite. And I'm going to speak specifically about Led Zeppelin because it's my all-time favorite band. But there are songs where John Paul Jones, who is one of the best session bassists in the history of ever, um, just really comes alive, whether it's him on keyboards or on the organ device he did with no quarter. That's just haunting. He just does these things that are amazing, and he's such a subdued personality within that band. People who are not big fans of that music are sleepers. Like they forget about him. this isn't a music show, but it is to talk about the fact that everybody in that band is so good at the thing that they do that when you put them all together, that it is just something unworldly impressive. And I like to think about that when I think about us working together. There are things that I just don't do as well as the other two. And there are things I hope that I do very well that maybe they don't necessarily do. So when we put those elements together or we're tossing around ideas, I can add a tweak, or Glenn can add a tweak, or Josh can add a bit of inspiration, and we spin this thing into something great. There's times where two of us will have an idea, but it takes that third one to say, "But if we did this also," and we're all like,
Right.
"Oh yes, that's the magic." Like we all knew we were close, but it took that third one
Yeah.
to say this thing also, and then it's like that's what I was talking about all along. That was the actual vision. I couldn't get there on my
Yeah.
own. And that's the way I think about this
I think
project.
specifically,
There
yeah,
are a lot of
There's not a
think
single
podcasters out there who
specifically,
have a lot of talents, but on my own, I'm nowhere without these two guys because I think these guys elevate my game all day, all day.
well, I appreciate that, Luminica.
Yeah, there's not a
And I
single
think
piece that any
specifically,
one of us have brought to the table.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead,
I mean,
Josh.
the best example of that. Sorry, yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I'm laggy or what, but I think the best example of that is literally was it earlier today. So we were looking at one of the powers for one of the subclasses, and I was like, I know that it's not right. And the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, I'm talking about the paladin, right? There's something about it that's not right. Like, boy, is this going to be like clunky? Is this actually going to work? I think it could be cool, but is it actually going to be something that players are going to want to use? And like with a very subtle change, Liwanika was with me that it wasn't quite right. Glenn suggested, well, what if we just did this instead? And then it's like, oh, and then Liwanika fixed the other piece of it. And I was like, boom, it's magic. It's absolutely done. And so it's like, I felt good about the power at first until I started thinking about it. And I was like, oh, that's actually not that good, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a fantastic bit of collaboration. And really, that's why the last book was so good, is because the three of us, without any fear that we were going to hurt each other's feelings or anything like that, we were just like able to like keep the book as the focus of our feedback and everything like that, to go ahead and make sure that we were putting out the best product we could. So,
And it truly is a blessing to work with two other minds.
you're good. Go ahead.
You were silent at the end there, like your mouth was moving and nothing was happening.
I think there might be a little bit of a video delay.
Maybe I'm having a delay. Here, let me.
Although I think I like that statement of just brilliant two other brilliant minds. Period.
Yep.
Oh no, I've offended him.
Nope.
No. That was to try to make up the delay if I had it.
Gotcha.
By dropping
Yeah.
my video feed, it might let my audio catch up so that I don't have a delay and wind up talking over people again. In a minute, if everything smooths out, I'll turn it back on. But yeah, it's such a privilege to work with two minds who are both brilliantly creative and so much in sync with most of the things that we share at the core of how we game. Because there's not a single piece that any of us has brought to any of these projects, regardless of who brought it, and regardless of how complete it was when it came to the table. Because sometimes things are very well fleshed out, and then sometimes all of us bring an idea that's just a nugget, and we're like, "What do you guys think?" And then we spin it around. But there's not a single idea that we've brought that all three of us haven't collaborated on to make better than it started from the beginning.
I think one of the telling comments when we wrote the last book, and has happened already, and I can see it happening with this book, is about 3/4 of the way through the project, we forget who actually wrote a thing for the most part.
Exactly.
Like if I don't have a
That's
note
happened, yeah.
that I wrote this thing, I will forget which one of us wrote that thing or came up with that original idea because we're so much
Yeah.
into it. Like some of these things get put on paper by one of us, but they were discussed on phone conversations on a car ride or side Facebook chats or whatever along the
That
way. And
paladin
it's
thing
like,
earlier that Josh mentioned went down on Facebook chat today. He put it out there, and we spun it around the three of us for about 45 minutes. And sorry,
Yeah.
Yep.
Dominica, go ahead.
yeah. And it's just one of those things where it's like by the time it got committed, there may have been one person typing at the keyboard, but three of us were already talking about it. So the words that were going into the keyboard were already a mix of the three. Or I'll be listening to an older episode of our show because I like our show enough. I actually listen to it as well from time to time, especially when I'm preparing for a game. I'm like, oh, we did a thing on that. I want to listen to that puzzles or what have you, so I can have the right feel for that. Which I did just this past week. I ran a big puzzle thing for my Monday night group. So I had to listen to our puzzles episode with Mike from 19 Hits the Dragon. So I was in the right mindset for puzzles. Went over swimmingly well. Didn't use any of the ones that we created for that show, but it was definitely inspired by the theory conversation and the theory craft that was discussed during that particular guest appearance we did on Mike's show. So it was one of those things where we're always tossing around ideas. That's the beauty of this group is we are idea people in general, and we hash those out. And then at some certain point, someone who will say, "Are you close to a keyboard? Can you jot that down? I'll flesh it out when I get home." So it's brilliant when we're able to work like that.
Yeah.
And I want to take a moment here to shout out Mike and Hannah at 19 Hits the Dragon.
Yeah.
They are actually, so like you said up top, and for anyone that knows me at all as being an emissary for Obsidian Portal, I've used it for years. They're just an awesome tool, an awesome site. The owner of the company himself is a guy from the community. Obsidian Portal was owned by just an IP hungry, it's just a holding. It was another IP that they had in their portfolio. Excuse me. So this guy from the community took it over and has turned it into something really super special. So I was able to be really what happened was I got to know people really well. And then I said, hey, you need someone to like go out and just talk about this. He was like, cool. I don't want to go for it. Um, and to loop back around, because I'm going to give a long-winded thing on this. I think it's my turn for a long-winded one.
I'm not sure.
I put out a call and just said, hey, it was a random Twitter, right? Like and comment or share whatever. And I do this thing, it's been a minute, but I break random card packs open, not Magic, not Yu-Gi-Oh, but literally, tell you what, let me see what I got here. This is, oh, what is this? Saban's VR Troopers 5-piece puzzle pack. I've got Flintstone somewhere around here and Justin Bieber cards I'm going to be breaking open because it's been a while since I did a video. But I put out this thing and just said, hey, I'm going to do a random breaking with someone and we'll create a story. And Mike was the random guy, and I messaged him, and I was just some dude like, hey, do you want to make a story? And Mike and Hannah said, yeah. We cracked open a pack of, it was original Johnny Quest playing cards that turned out to be in French. So that was fun. And we made a story out of that together. And he was, I am so grateful. And I owe Mike a debt of gratitude because he said, hey, I'm going to invite a bunch of guests I had on 19 Hits a Dragon, and we'll just play this one shot. You make the one shot for us. And Mike is honestly a 19 Hits Dragon is the reason I'm more public, I'm more active, and I reach out and do this stuff is because I had just such a great time with interacting. Mike and I and Hannah, all three of us, literally built this story together, and it went amazing places just to be able to talk to someone and be on the same page about that. So, long-winded thing, just to shout out Mike and 19 Hits the Dragon.
He is great. I mean, we
love Mike
we've
too.
been blessed to be on his show a couple of times. He's been on our show a bunch of times.
He's one of our playtesters, and
he's one of our playtesters.
yeah,
He's one of the backers of the campaign.
I mean,
so
Mike on Aliens is just, and you guys asked me, I know this is a reshoot, quote unquote, asked me my favorite episode, but that Aliens is just so good.
It is.
Wasn't it?
So good. And just every character and the way it went had just such that Ridley Scott grimy, like grunge fi, not sci-fi entirely, like that grunge fi feeling of pseudo future. That is one of my favorite episodes. Absolutely.
So I will say my favorite part. I was lucky enough. I'm going to cut you off here totally because I was lucky
Absolutely,
enough
go
to
for it.
run that game, and probably one of the most intimidating storyteller experiences of my life. Trying to go ahead
Yeah.
and storytell for these two, plus Mike, and friend of the show Steve Pugh from the Dad's Nerdy Ambitions podcast. Storytelling for that group was intimidating as all hell, but the best part of that was the stuff that you didn't get to see, and we kind of talked about this in the after episode where we talked about what we did with the aliens. But to make sure that the game experience was right and proper, we were sitting there, we were recording here in Zencaster, but I was like, everybody turn down your lights. I'm cranking up my AC. If you have AC in your room, crank it up so you get that cold, dark experience, to go ahead and make sure that that you're feeling it, that you're in the game with me, because I knew what I was going to be throwing at them. And so it was one of those things that was like, it was so great to be able to go ahead and do that. And I knew kind of like where the story was going a lot of the time, but they still surprised me. Like, the most surprising thing that happened in that game was when Steve playing Wilson, I wonder if it's me. Yeah, okay.
You got
My
really
internet's
skippy
been
for a
wacky,
hot
so it might
minute
be
there,
me.
but we were trying not to interrupt
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're fine. Keep flowing.
Yeah. Like when Steve, playing Corporate Agent Wilson, pulls that NPC into the
Oh
mother
my
room and then
God,
shoots
so
him in the back
good.
of the head. Oh God. That's not one that they cover in the
Spoiler
storyteller
alert.
handbook about how to go ahead and run that game. If he's going to kill that NPC, it's like, oh shit, what just happened? So it was fabulous. And then also too, like when in the pre-story with Luanika telling Lyrone's tale about why he's afraid of alligators.
Oh.
Again, that was in like the session 0 content. So I'm not like, oh God, like, and it's just all of a sudden that character, in that moment, that character came alive. And I was like, oh no, this is gonna be magic. This is really gonna be magic. We're you know what? We keep talking about what we're gonna do for Halloween this year, and we haven't really been able to kind of pull the horses together to go ahead and get another game session. We may just have to rerun that Alien Sessions, because those were so stinking good, like so good. Yeah.
I want to be alien bait. I want to be in that.
Yeah.
I want to self-invite myself. I
yeah.
want to be. Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see if we can play. Like, I was just thinking we may just have to rerun the episodes, because scheduling
absolutely.
is, because scheduling's tight.
An aliens game
But
would
yeah,
be fun
no,
though if we can
absolutely.
do one together.
I
In
can
fact,
say this about
go ahead.
Aliens. Everything about the game, everything that Freely put together on that, adds to that motif, and is really, and it can be played a couple different ways, but definitely the way Josh Story told that, and the way that adventure that we ran, was it Chariot of the Gods? Is that the right?
Chariot of the Gods, yeah, exactly. It was the canned adventure that came with the starter pack. Yeah.
But everything about that was to the first Alien movie, and just about that, and it was absolutely brilliant. And like, there were scenes I was actually scared, and there's a moment when LeRon is going after his best friend, that I'm like, this is where my character dies, right? I
Oh,
know I'm number 2.
100%. I
Like,
really thought you were.
I'm literally walking myself out of this game right now, and I
And
was sweating bullets.
I was driving to work, and I'm listening to, and I'm like, what? Why are like the guy in the theater yelling at the guy about to walk
What
through
are
the
you
door? Going,
doing?
why? I like it. Stop it.
Even just early on when we first boarded and we're trying to stabilize the airlock, and we're sealing ourselves in, and as players, we know what we're doing.
Yeah,
we know what we're doing.
Oh, so
But
great.
We're sealing
we're
ourselves
done.
in.
Yeah.
And then the whole best thing too is that you sealing yourselves in absolutely set up the fact that the captain of the other ship basically was out of options. She was out of air. She could not get onto the ship that you had stabilized. Like Lerone, Levanika, that moment when Lerone is at the window and you just see her in the catwalk, and she just starts walking backwards, and you're like, no, I can do it. And I mean, the timer's going down. Oh God, that was so much fun.
Yeah,
It was so much fun
That was
messing with you.
amazing.
So
I'm going to
much.
make sure the link for that, we're going to drop a link for someone else's podcast also in this for, well, you guys had it. He had it at 19 Hits Dragon, but
and then
Dad's with Nerdy Ambitions, that
that's
across
that's right. The
3 podcasts.
was it 3 or
Yeah,
because you
there's 3
guys
different
dropped
podcasts.
it in
Yeah.
episodic.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
God, anyone watching this, listening, it was I will say, a masterclass in DMing. And
absolutely.
so
Josh is a
I,
fabulous
and
storyteller.
that's the thing. I don't say that lightly. I'm not going to use the term forever DM, but I pride myself. That's my craft when it comes to tabletop.
Yeah.
Is story. But it was a masterclass in DMing and setting atmosphere, because horror is hard. Actual anxiety, and you could say, "Oh, you're about to die." It doesn't mean anything. The atmosphere you set and the way the story moved with the players, and
Mhm.
you could tell so easily that you guys playing this, that it made it a story that you wanted to be in, as opposed to just how well can I make my character perform. You made decisions. You were walking him, you were crawling in a duct, you're putting your head in flippant spaces you shouldn't, because
Mhm.
that's where the story was going. That was the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's a couple things that really helped lend that to it. One is atmosphere, and you mentioned that Josh had us turn our lights down.
Mhm.
Like, I don't remember, it wasn't initially, but partway through, he said, at this point, I need everybody to turn their lights down lower. And I can't remember in my head exactly when that happened,
It
but
was the beginning of episode 2.
Yeah,
When you guys
setting
went
the
into the
scene
dark
with the
ship.
cold and the dark,
yeah,
and
like, it changed the way I perceive things. And I have this beautiful ring light. It's showing me in this bright light, but I also have a couple color changes. So I have a blue light like that. And then I lowered that light considerably. So it went down to like this in that moment. And the rest of my house was dark. So this is the kind of the environment I was sitting in while that happened.
Yeah.
And then when those klaxons went off, I jumped out of my chair,
we all did.
Oh,
almost
when
went
Mother
out
first
the
spun up.
window. It was a sight to behold.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yep.
That's
Ah.
and I could talk about this is not a show about game mechanics or anything, but atmosphere jamming just could not have been cooler.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, we've talked a lot about games. We've talked a lot about the stuff behind that. So I want to ask some rapid fire, pseudo rapid fire, as rapid fire. Tell you what, we'll call it a charcoal fire, I guess. Maybe not rapid. Uh, some slow cooked questions here. So first off, guys, hypothetically, you add number 4 to the Tabletop Journeys podcast. This person must be a celebrity and must not be known for playing tabletop. So no Vin Diesel, no Felicia Day, no, not yes. But who's a celebrity you would bring to a table that you think would rock it on your podcast?
Drew
We'll start
Barrymore.
up top. Drew, that's a good one.
Who'd you say?
Drew Barrymore.
Yep, that'd be good.
One of my favorite celebrities. Amazing sense of humor. She'd be great. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm gonna start
Go ahead,
counting
Louis.
down. I know you've got someone.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
waiting
no,
for Josh. I want him to go first.
You're
Yeah.
all failing at this rapid fire thing. That works like you just spit it out like I did.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I would wholeheartedly extend that invitation to Bitsy Tulloch from Superman and Lois.
Ooh.
Okay. All right. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Dude, mic drop right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Please
all
and
about that.
Please and thank you, Miss Tulloch. Please. Yeah.
I would say, and I was struggling. I probably would have said Stevie Nicks.
Ooh.
But I had just watched the special about Jefferson Airplane, and then I was thinking, but Grace Slick would be wild. Like wild.
All right.
So,
But she's got a DM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we go down that rabbit hole, it's gonna be insane. But but my first thought was definitely Stevie Nicks.
Morgan Freeman too.
Yes.
Yep.
Can you imagine
Um,
having him at your
I
table?
mean, here's the thing. You
Can
guys
you
are
imagine
all
him being your DM? Oh,
right?
that is all the things. All the things.
you guys have some great answers, but the correct answer is William Shatner. Just a heads up.
No,
No.
Absolutely,
no.
absolutely
like the
would
Shat.
be the.
Hard pass. Hard pass.
Here's the thing. William Shatner would be the worst player to have at a table. I
But you asked which one
100%
would be the
believe in it.
best one, so why would we choose him?
I would rather
Because
have
he'd
Chris
be the
Pine
best
doing a
worst
William
one.
Shatner impression.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll start off then. Worst one. My favorite is Will Shatner for favorite, but he to me straddles both. Both number one person I want at the table would be great, and the absolute worst player to have at your table. Who would that be? Fire him off.
I would have to say, God rest his soul, Gilbert Gottfried, because I would be
Oh,
in
God.
stitches the entire fucking time.
Oh, yeah. That'd be,
100% worth an F bomb. Yes.
yeah. But it's a
You'd have to go
PG-13 show.
with-
We get one. Yeah.
I am
You'd have to
was.
go with
surprised.
Kevin Costner
Oh,
because I'd like him for whatever character he played when he played the right one, but all of the other ones would just seem like that one.
Oh, yeah.
Every other character he ever played would seem like the one that was good.
Can I say
Yeah.
Stephen Wright? Because I would not be able to take that for like an entire night. Like
Yeah.
a 5-minute blurb would be fine, but beyond that, I'd be like all done.
oh! By the way, I'm changing my answer. Gary Oldman for best one at the table. Sorry.
Oh, yep. I'd go with Gary Oldman. I'm thinking like worst would be like Mitch Hedberg, like like I mean, and not just because he's dead, but also because I don't think he'd be very good at it. Like that's
No.
yeah.
I used to kill undead. I mean, I still do, but I used to too. Like, bro, just
Exactly.
cast it. Just turn him.
Just roll the damn dice.
Yeah.
Carrot.
You know what I like about
Andrew Dice Clay.
No, he would be amazing. He'd be
No,
amazing.
he would not. Oh my
Oh.
god, I'd punch him in his face.
I mean, you couldn't do that. You could not do that after 1995
So
because not
Fair
even
enough.
MTV would take him after that point. But I mean,
Sam
Okay.
Kinison, like
ow,
All right,
Wow.
next question.
Dang.
No, moving on. Next question. You are asked to host a show on TV, non-tabletop related. What
mhm.
show do you host? And I'm going to say it has to be next to Carson Daly because I would love to see any of you with Carson Daly because I think it'd be the worst torture and not a terrible day. But you are asked to host a show with Carson Daly. What is that show?
I mean, as long as he can be like the eye candy off to the side, I would love to host The Weakest Link. Like that'd be absolutely my
Ooh.
jam. Oh yeah, where I just get to go ahead and sit there and insult people for 30 minutes. Pff, done. Absolutely.
Done.
Every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right,
Glenn.
Lewanika. No, Glenn. Someone.
I was
punted.
born with a face for radio. I'm not sure. Well, it could be radio too, couldn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Now
You
we're
stand
talking about
behind
an
Carson
existing
Daly.
show, or I create my own show.
Existing show.
Existing show, huh? Well, I think Carson and I could take over Oprah.
Yeah. Yep.
We could do a
Solid.
good job. We could.
You know what? I don't want any more details. I want to leave it there so I can just build the rest of that story.
Yeah. Just build the headcanon. Yeah.
I want to say The Chase, because that's a great game show. But I honestly want, if I had Carson Daly, I would want to maximize his music contacts, and I would host some kind of karaoke, some type of karaoke game show where we bring on people nationwide, who
Like
just
the
do
Masked
karaoke
Singer.
and stuff. Not even the Masked Singer. I want a karaoke show. Like they had it on for a while. I really did.
Yeah, with who I cannot believe I'm blanking. Wayne Brady.
Yep.
Was that? No, yeah,
No,
it was, right?
I think he might have been on that. I only watched a couple. Like I watched like the international one is the one I watched, I
You know,
remember a couple
I'm
of the
gonna
songs
do.
that one of the winners did, and I remember, or one of the semifinalists did, and I remember I do that song. That's pretty cool. So I was kind of, yeah, I would do a
I'm,
karaoke show.
I'm doing that super cheesy. Don't forget the lyrics. Who was it? It was Wayne Brady. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I did that super cheesy Google it
Mm.
while talking about it. Okay. That all of those are great answers too. You are asked to work on a project for a tabletop unrelated to what you guys are doing. So this one, I know I said getting away from tabletop, but
Mhm.
what's an IP you would want to dive into? What's say we're going to make a supernatural tabletop. I know Monster of the Week already exists, but we're going to make a Dollhouse classic, right? Maybe poor timing with what's come out, but you are going to create an IP out of something you love. What would that be?
That doesn't already have an IP, or could be an
We'll
existing one.
say it can be an existing one, just not tabletop. If you're not going to reinvent D&D, you're not going to go back to, give me even if it's an IP. Because I just found out, for example, was it Ghost Dog? There is a tabletop RPG for being a samurai in the Ghost Dog
I think I
mythos.
knew that. Somewhere in my brain knew that information. Couldn't have said it before you mentioned it, but somewhere in my brain
Right?
knew about that.
So, me personally, I would want to re-up that. I would want to bring that back 100%.
Yep. So I'm gonna go very very highbrow with my answer here and say that like something
Downton Abbey.
like the Odyssey, like making a role playing game based on the world, the mythical world spelled out in the Odyssey of Greek myth, I think could be hot. You know.
Into
Yeah.
the Badlands.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that would be good.
solid
That would be
answer.
good. Wow, so many. Like, this plagues me because there are so many. I'm gonna keep it to things that I don't think already have one, and like part of me wanted to go with Sliders, but
Sliders
because
would
I
be
absolutely love
fantastic
that
as
show.
well.
Yeah, and
Are
there's so much you
are
can do
you
there.
seeing anyone? Because like you stole my. I just right here, buddy. Just
But
saying, you were
this
pulling
week,
my
my wife
We've
heartstrings.
might
said
say,
sliders in a question like this before in a previous something,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I guess
Sliders would be
I'll stick with
fantastic.
Sliders. I had a couple other ideas that I thought would be pretty interesting, but
Yep.
I always go back to Sliders because it is something. While much of the show doesn't hold up, it is still so fundamentally cool in my mind that I would love to find a way to make that tick. Like, I
Yeah.
want to find a way where that
I'd
can
love to see it
be,
as a reboot
you know.
today with
Yes,
today's
I
effects. I would love to see it as a reboot.
Yeah.
The effects would be good, but they would CW it like they've done with everything.
That's fair.
And
As long as
Yeah.
they still
yeah,
put effort into the story,
Yep.
it would make it.
yeah.
They could remake
yeah,
it pretty fantastic.
There's a number
The
of
oh,
story was
CW
great
shows.
reimagining it.
before. Don't get me wrong, but if they're rebooting everything, I would love to see a reboot of
Yeah.
Sliders.
And just
Yeah,
think,
and
if we
if we
make a
could get some
Sliders
cameos from
RPG,
the
the
original
cookbook writes
cast in
itself.
it, that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say, and just imagine if we make a Sliders RPG, the cookbook writes itself.
Yeah,
That's
on the crime.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Sliders. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Deep cut. All right.
I'm gonna
And
I want to
take two.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking of sliders, White Castle has chicken sliders now. I saw that in the
That's
grocery store the other day.
nope.
That
That's
was
a
like
sin,
amazing.
and I will not.
I
Absolutely.
would, just
That's a
'cause.
sin.
I mean,
Lee,
I
when they
wouldn't
keep
drive
chicken doesn't
3
chicken in all
hours
slide.
its forms.
I wouldn't drive 3 hours to Jersey to find a chicken slider, but it is one of my first stops whenever I go to Chicago, though.
Okay.
New Jersey?
So
No, 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 White
That's
Castle.
complicated.
In addition to content writing, we have comedic timing too. I don't know if you're aware of it.
oof.
If you can imagine, like, this is what our production meetings are like too. Like we will desperately try to be serious, and then one of us will make a fart joke that just like sets the other two off, and it's like, okay,
And sometimes
we
things
just
come out of Lee
lost.
Winnicke's nose. It's great.
Oh, that's a game.
We try to
Like, see if
avoid
we
that,
can.
though.
Yeah.
No, you do. We try to cause
I,
it.
I, I've got expensive equipment here. I'm trying not to ruin this stuff. I have ruined others. I'm trying not to wreck these ones.
Yeah.
I mean,
All
we
right.
record in a few
So
days. I can't get it replaced fast enough.
Amazon, they don't have it local. Prime is 2 out.
Yeah.
So I want to know, tabletop is obviously a big part of your lives.
Hmm.
Tabletop has defined you guys in a lot of different ways, and I wanted to get into that too, but I also want to know, what are you passionate about away from the table? What's your hobby? What's your drive? What's a love that you have outside of tabletop? Because
Okay.
like I said, kind of at the top is, I think everything we do when it comes to storytelling, content creation, interaction at the table is driven by a lot of things, whether it's the characters you make, whether it's the story you create, it's something else. What do you have outside of tabletop
Sure.
that you are invested in and love?
Food and music.
Yeah.
Food and music. I love to cook. I love cooking for large numbers of people. In fact, we are in the planning period before our big end of summer barbecue bash that we have. We're
Is there
actually
a
doing
date for
some
that yet?
basket raffles and local charities and stuff like that. That date should be out on Facebook.
Cool. Thank
I've
you.
got
I'll look
some
at it.
work to do on that as well. Last year we had close to 100 people there, kids and families included. We have bounce house, all kinds of stuff like
It's
that.
a good
I was
time.
on the grill. Bounce house, baseball, volleyball, karaoke, and a ton of amazing food. Um, and and then the stuff I cooked also was good. Um, uh, Basically the grill is my domain. So we had these long, the big grill pits at public pavilion type events. Had that one of those filled. We had chicken. I had marinated chicken, and we had it done with. I think we had 3 or 4 sauces. I had a homemade pastrami. I did. Uh, there is all kinds of salads and all kinds of extra things. This year, we're actually gonna put out a taco bar for everybody. Like we go all out. So we're gonna show up. We're gonna show up and show out for this one. And what I love about that is it's a family event. Like we bring kids families. It's all of our friends. And other folks as well. So you get to meet people and spend time with people, that because it's hard to get people together. So we have this one big event at the end of the summer expressly for that purpose. A good friend of mine does karaoke DJing, so he's down there, and we stuff him full of food, take care of him for his time as well. But we also, I pretty much get to sing as much as I want, so that's kind of cool. And that's my other love is music. I love music. I sing often and always. Um, I There's no such thing as me in a car without singing something. I will frequently, and I've done so here like 2 or 3 times just in the length of this broadcast. Something will call to mind a song, and I will start singing. I'm a repository of music knowledge that's bizarre and odd, and I watch documentaries on music and bands and such. So that's just kind of who I am, and I love so many different styles and types of music that it it's rare that there's a type of music that I don't like anything from. There's always something in every type of music that I can latch onto. Like I really like that, or it fits this one particular mood. May not have that mood all the time, but there's always going to be something that I like, or I can pull out positive from music.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm also super passionate about music, but even kind of beyond that, music has very much been a part of my life forever. But also, my wife and I, we love traveling. We love spending time together. Honestly, we traveling all over the place. And we on top of our other busy schedule, we also run a burgeoning furniture restoration business, which is just a ton of fun. It takes a very special couple to be able to go into business together. And we love it. Absolutely
I
love it.
couldn't do it. There's no way I'd be
And
able
they're
to
stinking
survive.
adorable. They're stinking adorable about it.
Yeah, apparently we're pretty cute about it. So it's
My
That's
wife thinks so too.
gross.
It's not just me.
Cute married couples are gross.
We are. We're the gross. We really are the grossest. Just wait till we spawn too. Like just wait till the baby comes. Like we have a baby coming in December, and just wait till it's the three of us. We're gonna be just disgusting. Like just like
I bet she's wearing shirts that says like "Baby Loading" and "Ready Player 3," and you're like, "Dad, to be." Are you guys? I can already see you wearing like gearing up your dad stuff.
So we don't have so much parenting gear. However, this our child is going to have the most diverse clothing ensemble line of all time. Like like she's got like uh I'm a baby Tarrasque nom 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 onesie, and a barbarian in training onesie. We were just down in Boston this past weekend going to a Red Sox game and stopped by the Bruins Pro Shop in North Station there and got her like a Bruins onesie that has this nice little frill on the butt. We're having a little girl, so it's adorable. It's like sparkly, but it's still like
She
got
make
the
me
big
Yankees
Bruins
onesie
smoke on
that
it.
says my uncle was right.
No, because he's
Dude,
not right. Because
you could
2004.
off a
Well,
Teespring,
I
you
got.
could score a Legend is Born Tabletop Journeys onesie.
Oh, absolutely. We're gonna absolutely. I'm gonna get some Tabletop Journey swag for it. Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
When we were creating our Teespring shop, 2 fans were pregnant, or families were pregnant, so we had to make a onesie and send it to them for fans.
Yeah, you can't not.
Yeah.
So, Glenn, what do you do? What is your away from the table passion?
So if I'm not tabling either discussions like these or actually running games, playing in them, my wife might say sometimes that tabletop is beginning to take over my life, but not completely. But we love to do similar to Josh and his wife. We love to travel. We love to go places. It doesn't have to be far away. It can be close by. It doesn't have to be a big name place or crazy busy. We just really, really, really love exploring this world together, whether it's through hiking or hitting a weird, obscure Civil War museum. There's a couple of those. Well, there's one in Connecticut that's a Civil War museum specifically, but there's a couple of weird museums staged around Connecticut that you can find if you look for them, or other weird places like that. I love old ruins in the woods when we can find them. And I've also discovered in my old age an extreme love of dancing. Yeah, I'm 6'4" and I'm a giant, always been burly guy who was too freaking stodgy to do it. But in my old age, I've said, F it, I love dancing and I don't care. So now I even do it in public, and I'm thinking about taking classes.
Oh, do it.
Mhm.
Bet you won't. Do it.
Bet you will. I already called him.
Boom. Nope, I can. Nope, I'm good. I almost mic dropped my
But
actual
that one
mic.
surprises the crap out of me. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
Never in my
don't
life
actually drop the
earlier
mic,
than
yeah.
this would I've ever expected me to say, "Yeah, dancing is a hobby of mine." No, I freaking love it.
That is awesome. You've got to own something outside. That I respect that and
Thanks.
applaud that. So, fellas, it is the zombie apocalypse. What is your go-to weapon that is not a firearm?
Oh man, see,
And you can
Lucille.
mod
the
it,
problem.
obviously. What was that?
Lucille,
Boom. That was
Yeah.
quick.
See,
That's a
and
good
Walking
go-to.
Dead fan, man.
here's
An
the problem.
entrenching tool.
Yeah. I'm the one that doesn't survive the zombie apocalypse. Let's just be straight. Because I mean, like, look here. My skills are working with computers, and I am nearly blind unless I'm wearing my contacts. Right. So, and
So you're
and I've got 2 bum knees. So, like,
That's why you
I'm
should
not
have a
gonna
pair of
be.
backup glasses on the shelf just in case.
I mean, I do. Yeah, but
no,
like, okay.
your
What
go-to
was?
is Xanax then, right?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
straight up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's my backup is Lucille, but not because I'm carrying her with me. Like that's let's just put it right. Exactly. Like that's I'm taking care of my own business before my business gets taken care of. Okay, like let's just put it that way, right? Like that's just like I'm not
He's
surviving the
running
zombie
for the
apocalypse. I know
shelter of
this.
his mother's little
Exactly.
shelter.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'd have gone with a chainsaw hand like Ash, but that really doesn't seem practical, and it seems heavy and unwieldy.
It seems heavy. Like I'm not that strong. Like
I'm too
I would
clumsy for
say-
something like that.
That's a good way to go out, but that's not
Yeah.
a good way to function in general.
Yeah.
I gotta
And what was-
agree.
like there was that most recent show, well, maybe not recent, but before Walking Dead. This was maybe 20 years ago. It had like that futuristic
Oh,
show where all of
recent.
a sudden all the electricity went out all of a sudden, and there was like this like one person had like a medallion, like a secret
Revolution.
medallion.
Revolution, and it was an
Thank you.
amazing
Yeah, right.
show until
Oh,
it
You know,
suddenly
that
went
was
weird
you
as
know,
balls.
but you had the guy that like wore glasses, and that became just like a recurring plot point about how his glasses always got in the way of his ability to actually thrive and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh come
My
on,
glasses.
yeah,
That
exactly.
was a
Like
great
that
show
would be
for
me.
all of season 1, and then they botched it in season 2 by
Oh,
getting to the end too quickly.
oh,
Same thing they did with
they
100.
heroes
It was
that
great
show.
for season 1,
Oh,
and then they botched it by jumping to the
yeah,
end in season 2.
they
Yes.
heroes that show so badly. They
Yep.
absolutely
Yeah.
did. Like, oh my
Yep.
goodness.
Like I'm fine with where it went. It just didn't have time to breathe. Like
I
Yeah.
you
wasn't
had
fine
this
with where
great
it
setup.
went. It went
I was
crazy
okay with
weird.
it. I think it was fine because it was an interesting excuse for what happened. It just got there too fast. But that was a very inspirational show for some of the things I've done on tabletop games, by the way, because I like that concept. Some of my modern games have really delved into some of that. What happens when modern society loses all these modern amenities all at once? And then what happens? Like they show the planes coming down, they show how people goes
Yeah.
down. That's why I love the movie Reign of Fire. Very similar thing where
yes.
modern society just ends. What happens? And then you've got these people were kids when we were kids, basically doing plays of what they remember Star Wars to be, because that's the lore that they're teaching their kids to teach them their moral lessons and such.
Mm.
And that to me was brilliant and amazing. And that's exactly what Lucas wrote Star Wars for, to be the modern legend, because we don't have those anymore. So he was giving us a new one for the modern age. And so I think of things like Reign of Fire, which, by the way, I think for a fact is a game that at some point I'm going to be playing, and I will probably do so with Everyday Heroes when that releases. I was one of the early backers
Yeah.
on that. When that comes out, I think that'll be one of the first games I do until Universal Soldier, because I backed that part of the Kickstarter also.
Mm.
So I've got Universal Soldier and Highlander that are coming to me when that comes out, when those come out. So, but yeah, definitely Reign of Fire. Hot damn, that's good.
Solid. Next question here. Pulp Fiction. What was in the briefcase if it was not his soul?
A coherent plot that really should have belonged in Reservoir Dogs, which was a far
All right,
superior
call
movie.
over. Done.
Yeah,
Would you
no.
take that back?
Reservoir Dogs was the far superior movie. Pulp Fiction was hot garbage, and I will die on that.
My
hill.
hand to God, Reservoir Dogs was the better movie.
Yeah.
I don't think Pulp Fiction was a bad movie,
Hot,
but Reservoir Dogs was a whole
hot
separate level of
garbage.
greatness.
Listen, Josh, your bad opinion aside, I asked you a question. What was in the briefcase?
What's in the box? What's in the box?
What's in the box?
Yeah, bad
Gwyneth
special effects.
Paltrow's
I
head.
don't know, man. Like that's
The head?
no, Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
An Azurite power crystal fully charged and glowing from Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse.
I like
Yes.
it.
Ooh.
Yes.
Inside Gwyneth Paltrow's open mouth.
Yeah,
head
Possibly,
in
quite
box
possibly,
briefcase.
yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Sauron's ring
I
was
like
the
it.
all-seeing eye.
Why the
box
Gwyneth
there, yeah.
Paltrow hate? I mean, why we got to whack her just to stick a crystal in it?
Because
What's
that
in the
was the wife.
box?
That's seven.
What's in the
That was
What's in
that
the
was the Seven
box?
reference.
Oh, seven. My bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which
stay
is
with
also
it. We
Seven
just
came in there.
referenced.
I missed it. Seven came
He
in. I
just
missed it. It
dropped
went
like
over my
4
head.
movies in rapid succession,
And I missed one. I'm sorry. I'm old.
which are, by the way, all 4 of them in my top 50 movies of all time. By the way, I love all of
Awesome.
those movies.
Okay.
Don't ever ask him to list those top 50 though. It's a constantly rotating.
Oh, we don't have that kind of time for him to list all 50 because he's going to go through 250 before he decides which ones are actually the actual 50.
So, I want to test you guys here.
Uh-oh. You didn't tell me there'd be a test.
No, well then just don't fail because I'm going to make sure
Lucky
this
for you,
stays
I'm
in the
good at
cut.
tests.
So, I
Bad at
mentioned
studying,
earlier.
good at tests.
I mentioned earlier that I ran a game for 19 Hits the Dragon, made the story with Mike and Hannah. Still, honestly, one of my favorite things I've ever run. It just went so well. The players were great. I still have very good relationships with all those players. And I've been on their podcast and interact with them.
Yeah.
But my point is, guys, we're going to create a quick story here.
Ooh.
What I've got here is a pack of Spawn trading cards,
Mm-hmm.
Free Willy 2 trading cards, and X-Files trading cards.
See, so you got the Shadow Dwellers, the Metropolitans, and the Land of the Boiling Seas. Got it. Yeah. That's
So, a little
appreciate the
bit of
product placement.
ASMR, because honestly, this is one of my favorite. I got into this hobby just for this. Shh, quiet, shh. I love you. How was your day? You know, is that too much? That's a deep cut. Maybe just me and like 2 other guys who listen to this. Oh my god, they're all.
The guy's walking around with his underwear on his head. And we don't know why.
I'm still stunned that Spawn
that
is
too much?
involved with this because I have feelings about Spawn and they're not.
Too much? I think I've still got Flintstone somewhere.
No.
Let's go with the Flintstones.
He hates Spawn
Where
with
is it?
passion.
Do you?
Just like chickens.
I do not like Spawn.
Okay.
I have very specific needs their own podcast feelings about the image comic revolution of the
I
of the
gotcha.
90s.
Okay. What have I got here? Tell you what.
I'm down with the Flintstones. I am all in on Flintstones. I've
I-
watched every episode I think that they've ever
Well,
had, that
you know
except for
what?
the couple of banned ones. And I even know some of the
There's-
pieces of those.
They're somewhere, and I can't find them. So instead, what I've got here is a Sterling Premiere Edition of award-winning country music artists.
Got it. I'm in.
Excellent.
Because how could this not go any better? So what we've got, Free Willy 2, X-Files. So some of these cards are, oh my gosh, they're so stuck together that I don't
Don't
think I'm
eat
going to
that
be.
gum, by the way.
So they absolutely come with gum, and I'm
Yeah, don't
100%
eat
going to eat them. I'm absolutely. Listen,
Oh.
if you are going to eat chicken sliders from White Castle,
He's got you
then
there. Yeah.
all right. So what
Is it
we're
still
going to do?
called
We're
a
going to.
slider the next day.
Probably a few hours later.
My bad.
All right. So here's what we're going to do, guys. I'm going to draw random cards, and I don't want the exact picture, right? If I say, "Hey, I need a hero," and I hold up, oh my gosh, who I've
Dolly
got
Parton.
here? Oh, listen, I've got a whole podcast about how much I love her. I would do that, so no problem. I can't even get these apart. This is insane. Here we go. And I hold up Roger Miller here, right? You're not going to say the hero is Roger Miller. We're going to go, you're going to do a, he looks friendly, or he's older, or he's balding, or he loves red.
He's wearing.
You
a
know
red
what I
shirt.
mean?
Like a
He must
Star
die.
Trek captain. Like, I mean, it might be
Yeah.
a sweater that he's wearing, but
Whatever
yeah.
we want to do. So tell you what,
Yeah.
we'll start with our hero,
Yeah.
Mr. Roger Miller. Who is our hero? Who is he? Is he a red shirt that eats it in a Star Trek show, or is he a
Oh,
captain?
okay. Yeah, no, totally. No. I'm down with that. Yeah, he totally
That is
eats
totally
it
a
within the
red
first
shirt.
half hour. Yeah.
I was going to say
All right.
he's the admiral that assigns the mission. Like I picture Admiral Miller is has a plan. He's got secrets that he's not divulging to the crew of this new starship, and he's going to send them on a mission for his own nefarious means.
Oh, right.
Then-
And it's his son that's the red shirt that dies in the first 15
Of course.
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Son eats it. I want to say he's on the ship because he's like, listen, Picard, move your ass over. I'm in this chair now. So
Yep.
that way, if we want to turn
Admiral
him
on the
into a red
bridge.
shirt, either way, yeah. All right,
Oh,
so we
yeah.
got our hero.
Are you sure
We
that's
need
not
a
Q?
villain. No. He does kind of look like Q,
I was gonna
but
say,
that's
sure
just
it's
because
not
we're
Q
thinking Star
pretending to be
Trek.
Picard.
Oh,
With
Q.
all respect to John Delancey.
Also, so I'm going to mention here, in the previous one, I threw out how much I love the River Horse My Little Pony tabletop game.
You did.
And I still stand by it because also, I'm not a brony. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I watched so much My Little Pony. The whole run of, I don't know what generation, but Twilight Sparkle, Shutterfly, Rainbow Dash. It's an entire epic D&D story with awesome big bad evil guys, blah, blah, blah. The point is, there's a character in there called Discord, voiced by the same actor, and he is literally Q, but kid-friendly. Literally omnipresent, omnipotent, silly, over the top. just look him up, like YouTube, some clips of Discord. It's literally just Discord in that show. And in my head, canon fits because he could be wherever he wants and do whatever he wants. So he left Picard to go be a cartoon character, in my opinion.
I love
Okay.
it.
And they
That's
just
my
need,
rant.
and they just need to put him on lower decks and make that canon to make that fit.
I can't believe they haven't yet. And I believe, just like Star Trek Next Generation, they only ever dropped Q after his first appearance to spike ratings. Anytime it dropped, they would drop a Q episode.
Yep.
Fun fact.
Hmm.
All right. So we need a villain. We're going to shuffle up. That's just contents. And we've got... so the card says no sign yet. And this guy almost looks... Come on. We're going to make it happen. He's like cringing. There's fire. He looks either mean or worried. Who's this villain?
He is the chief magistrate on the planet that the ship goes to, and he has his own secret police group
Yeah.
that chases folks down.
It
Right.
kind of runs
But
like the
they're
mafia.
totally like a, yeah. But they're a total
Okay.
like Luddite like a Luddite society. Like there's no electricity, there's no nothing, right? So like that's why he's got like the dumpster fire behind him. Then is because I mean there's no technology, there's no nothing, and so they're like scared of like, or not scared, but they are they're put out
resistant
by,
and
exactly, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I
maybe
can see that.
maybe they're
I
Luddite by
went
choice.
mafia because
Exactly.
I was looking at him. I was looking at him like, the big Don, but he was at the cabin,
Yeah.
the little
Yeah,
girl that doesn't
I
want
mean,
anything to do with him, that's off to the side there, and he's turning around like, what the hell are you
Yeah.
interrupting me for?
Oh,
But
I'm
I like
I'm
the
cool
like
with
it.
magistrate with like a criminal enterprise underneath them. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like he has
So,
an official
Constitutionally
position,
bonus.
but he actually does all these dirty, underhanded things.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, he
So-
lets his consigliere do them, but yeah.
The next thing we need is the hook, because we're telling a cool story. It's an episode of something, but you have to have a hook if you're going to have your players in this, right? So far, we're describing a story. What brings in your players? Oh, there she is. Another red. That's literally 3 red shirts.
Mm.
X-Files, Free Willy 2, and country music artist red shirts.
So is
Pretty
is
amazing.
Dana Scully head of the pro technology resistance?
Ooh, is that what
I think
brings
she's
it
an
in?
embedded spy to the organization, and she has called out for aid, but secretly she's Roger Williams' daughter. So his mission is to save his kid, and he's not, and he's not even supposed to be on the mission. Like he's basically using his position to go do this thing, and the crew doesn't even know it's not sanctioned.
I like it. So they're all pulling rank. We got 3 red shirts. We've got a Don. We've got an Admiral. We've got embedded spy. They're all,
Yeah.
dude. These, I can't
Yeah.
at this point. A player
This is
coming
tight,
onto
yeah.
this ship, has so much political pull and intrigue. Whether you drop a whodunit or what happens, I like that. So the hook, they are drawn in. They're called out. She needs help, and they're going in. Next thing we need is the conflict. Where does the hero and the villain meet, and where is the where does the party fit into this, right? So
Yeah.
our hero, and I like to, when I do these cards, your hero can be a number of things. It doesn't have to be a person. Maybe you're supporting a cause or something like that. But I like where we're at. So we need a conflict. What happens when we as the party confront the bad guy? Because the villain or the good guy NPC doesn't have to be in the fight. The hook could just be like some lady who said, I don't know where my husband is, and you just went off to find him, right? So we need the conflict. What happens? What do you guys want? X-Files, Free Willy, or country music?
Free Willy.
Oh yeah. Why wouldn't you?
I mean, if I need conflict, I'm going for the gigantic whale jumping over the wall. I mean, that's
See, here's what I love about this is you get the exact opposite is just a bunch of people sitting around looking like either they're scared or they're farting.
Or maybe they're scared of farting.
So there's a tent in the background. Perhaps they're camping,
right?
So
farting.
That's and there's the kid there, and they're out in the wild because they're Luddites. And this is what Luddites do. They sit around on logs farting and hating technology.
Exactly.
It's a
Oh, and they
refugee
vegans? What's that?
situation.
It's-
The
Ooh,
planet is in
refugee.
danger, and the
Yeah.
magistrate is deciding who gets saved.
Yep.
And these are the people that are on the out. So the conflict
Yeah.
actually happens around the people who have to decide one about their way of life versus survival.
Or
I
maybe the
like that.
magistrate is denying that there's a problem at all
Mm,
Ooh,
in
I like that.
this situation. So
Yeah.
these are the people who are being forced to live outside of their current society, trying to find a way to save the situation or whatever is going on.
And this is great for the party to take a break from these. We got a magistrate, we've got a pseudo-don, we've got this spy who's trying to get the party to go back and forth. This is a point where I think in a story where I'd say, all right, and then you find out about these people, and they go from like, it sounds like starship decks and technology and all this, and they're like, all right, well, we're going to screw off for a while, and they find an entirely different side of the story. And if we're in the conflict, they're out there, they realize, well, this is it. This is
This
where
is
all
the
the lies
stake.
are. Yeah, these are the people that are important. The spy, the magistrate, the don. These people who are out they're the people that didn't have the money. They weren't connected to the don. They weren't someone's daughter. So the party comes in. Who do they fight? Are they fighting the
Well-
chief magistrate and his goons?
Well, I'm going to take this kind of a weird twist because I'm looking at those
Do it.
pictures, and that kind of looks like Dana Scully a little bit, kind of like the red hair, but the face is a little bit different.
Okay.
And the other guy kind of looks like maybe a younger Roger Moore. So, have they been have the admiral's son and the spy
The
have they been like
magistrate's daughter.
cloned? Have they been
No,
cloned?
look.
Yeah.
No, they have a
There's
child.
They have a
They
they
little
have a
child.
child. He's right there.
He ain't
Yeah.
native. That's not like a brother or anything.
Right.
That's
So now you got the admiral's daughter and the magistrate's son. Hooked
Right.
up
Yes.
like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
it's little Romeo and Juliet.
Yep.
Yes, and they're living out their pseudo Luddite life just to protect their
Yep.
hidden love child.
Exactly.
I
right,
love
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Who
So
is probably like improperly registered, and so like the magistrate doesn't know that he exists. Or
right,
of
he's
course
not
like that, yeah.
chipped or
Yeah,
tagged
right.
like all
Yeah,
these
yeah.
Luddites.
Yeah, meanwhile they're
Oh.
raising him with an iPad, like that's just to kind of like keep him educated and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like an older generation,
Well,
not
totally.
the
Yeah,
new.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we're in
Okay,
Star
so
Trek, and you said iPad, so it's already an older generation.
Yeah.
they generated it in the holodeck.
Right,
What is
exactly.
it?
Yeah.
All right, so the conflict we have, they
iPad,
fight
the
the
megaplots
magistrate.
of the Star Trek universe.
Ah.
Yeah, fair.
After the climax, we need the outcome, right? What happened? The party fought the magistrate. The spy led us into all of this because she was trying to get us against all these people just so the Luddites could survive. She could be where she wanted with her child. The party takes down these different parties, and we've got the outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we drawing? X-Files, Country, or Free Willy again?
Country.
Yeah.
If it's another red shirt, fellas, we're going to have to do this every week because that's how well it goes.
Yeah.
We
I'm hoping
have...
it's like a pickup truck driving into the sunset or something. Like that's...
There we go. Everyone's favorite. It's the Oak Ridge Boys is our outcome.
Yep.
Elvira.
Right? All right. So these guys look pseudo homeless, right? He washes cars like he's the guy that squeegees your windshield without asking at stoplights. This guy sells he sells timeshares. This guy absolutely plays
He's got a mullet.
Starbucks.
He's got no job.
No, he plays Starbucks cafe. He's the like 2 p.m. Starbucks guy with his guitar case open.
Playing his guitar out front, yeah.
This guy has a pretty successful insurance business, but also still loves his guitar at night.
Yeah, but he's a community, and he's an English teacher at a community college.
Night class for adults trying to get back on, on people trying to get their life back on track.
Exactly, yeah. You like
so
we've
we've
got
got
an infomercial at 3:00 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But wait,
Do you
there's
wanna,
more.
There's more.
Jam
Learn
wow.
guitar, grow plants, have a
So-
pet, be successful. What do you got?
What I see there is I see the next generation of Luddites clearly indicating that the conflict ended in their favor. And that's actually
Mm.
4 brothers, the 4 sons of the admiral's daughter and the magistrate's son.
So
The one in the
which
picture is
one?
the guy way over on the left with the big beard, and then
This
the other ones
I
are his
l-
younger brothers.
Yep,
I
Oh,
like
I
it.
see that.
yep.
There we go, fellas.
Yep.
That's a fantastic story. I
What an
love
upbeat
that.
ending.
Yeah.
You would have
Yeah.
thought we'd
Yeah.
have had a sad ending when we picked up a country card, but Glenn
Yeah.
found that silver lining. Well done, sir.
Oh,
Well
That
done.
was
Thank you
good.
very much.
So you know what we finally need though? We need a title. You cannot top off a story because I personally I name every one shot besides the like work in progress X3 that I save all my documents under.
Sure. Yeah.
You got to put a tag on this.
Let's see.
The red flag of love. A lot of
Yeah,
red
right.
shirts.
You know.
The Flames of Arrow 7.
Ooh,
Mm.
I like that.
Totally nonsensical. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is Arrow 7 the name of the planet?
Right.
Well,
I
that's the
said.
name of the, it's the name of the Arrow 7 is the planet. Eros is the star.
Yeah.
Eros
Yeah.
being love.
Yeah.
The
I
dumpster fire
love
from the magistrate is what made me think about it because
The
that was an
flames,
epic
yep.
moment when he made his appearance. So there you go.
I
Like it.
love it, guys. I don't know which stretch goal you want to put this in for the Kickstarter, but you know we'll get it written up after
I
and
mean,
just
we have look here. I can make this called shot. We have a plot line stretch goal. We are it's at $1,500. So we're at a little bit over 1,100 right now. Our plot line stretch goal is at $1,500. So it's going to take some work to get there, but I bet you we could probably go ahead and make some space for some elements of this story in there. Yeah.
And I am in the middle of
Oh no, we lost Glenn.
yeah. I'm in the
Apparently he didn't
middle
like that
of
idea.
prepping for a Star Trek Adventures game from Modiphius in the later fall, and I can tell you
Oh,
that
that'd be perfect.
I would
Oh yeah.
definitely use that. And if we end up doing anything like that for air, that will be the first homebrew adventure we do. That would be a stellar episode of Star Trek
Yep.
Adventures.
Yep.
So when you write that up, give me the basics that we just did. That way I
Yeah.
can start building
Well,
that out.
Right.
and that's
So-
what I do. So I'm gonna hawk my own stuff. I've got a couple videos on Obsidian Portal, and I list it out just like we did tonight: hero, villain, conflict, outcome. That this will be super easy to get out there, and I'll take some pictures of these cards. We missed some really good ones still, but
Yeah.
that came together surprisingly well.
Yeah, we're good at this.
Fantastic, guys. That was an awesome story. I would run that. I would play that any day.
That's why we fashion ourselves as storytellers. Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys absolutely showed up for this. I just want to say thank you so much. You know, I was really excited when we connected. I have been excited about this to be able to talk to creators that honestly I respect, I enjoy, and I look forward to consuming more and hopefully interacting more. Even though obviously Glenn doesn't want to, I still like him as well. I think that
Poor Glenn.
I think that something that really to kind of bookmark all this, bookend all this. You guys really, to me, exemplify. It's why I wanted to really interact and do this. You guys really exemplify what it means to me, to create content, to focus on your community and players, and to focus on quality of how you interact and how your content interacts. Honestly, I have a million more questions I could have asked, and there's a lot of stuff that I still want to know, and I think other people would want to know. But I hope part of this too, part of the reason I did this was to reach out so that people understand that you can consume a podcast, you can consume people talking about things, but there's always something behind it, and I hope creators like you put more of that out there too. Besides just obviously great content. I am by no means trying to diminish the content and the podcast and the amazing plays that you do, but I respect the hell out of you guys for being people that bring more to the table than just cool classes. So
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess on my end, like I said, want to bookend all this. I'm gonna make sure there's content links for everything. We talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a list. Um,
So,
but I'd like to get final thoughts, words,
sure.
intros, where we can find you. And
Yeah.
like I said, I'm going to drop links. So your Twitters, your MySpace, your Live Journal, all the classics.
Live
And
journal. That's a good one. That's a deep cut there.
Right.
Yeah. It's like what I'd made
so
some comment about the fact I'd made some comment about Netscape earlier today. That was that's a it-
Netscape, you used to get that at Blockbuster, right? With the
exactly right. Yeah, you got it on the
Napsters.
CD with a free rental. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All that
That was back in my Napster
yeah.
and eDonkey days.
All that to say, Zach, thank you very much for having us on. I mean, really, if you've got a million questions left, I can just delete all of this and we can do this a third time in the next couple of weeks here, I suppose. I mean, that'd be
How? What was that? Fuck.
so, see,
Excuse me, that's
you're
number
one of us
2.
now. Yeah,
Oof.
exactly.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, you know you're one of us now. I'm starting to stab you in the back like the other two Janokes here. So that's but seriously, this has been so much fun. It's been an absolute blast talking to you. I mean, this is normally the part of the show where I go ahead and relay the information on how to go ahead and find us. So first of all, we would love folks to go ahead and check out the Kickstarter. You can check out the Kickstarter very easy if you go to www.ttrjourneys.com/Kickstarter. You'll go right there. It's running until the 20th of September. We're super close to one of our stretch goals, and like we said earlier, like we got the plot line stretch goal coming up at $1,500, and so if we can get there, who knows what we're going to get. It'll be a good time. You should be able to find Tabletop Journeys, the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you can't find it wherever you listen to podcasts, please drop us a line. Best place, drop us on Twitter. We're at TT Journeys. Go to Facebook. We're at TT Journeys. All that sort of stuff. So.
I would add, I'm Lee Wanika, one of the hosts of Tabletop Journeys. I would say if you heard all of the references that we threw out throughout this episode, and you want to hear more, because we are chock full of them,
Really, we are.
don't
Yeah.
hesitate to reach out to us at any of the aforementioned things. We also have a Patreon, and we have a swag shop that we talked about on Teespring. Feel free to visit those things. Our patrons get an opportunity to listen to their episodes early for content. They also get free copies of all of our digital content, which is something that we are very proud of. Our patrons keep us going. They keep the lights on, and we appreciate that. And they're fantastic role players.
They really are.
Almost to a person.
Yeah.
They are. We really enjoy sharing with them and having them at our virtual tables. Our actual plays are patron plays. Many of them are. But regardless of whether they're going to be on air or not, our patrons get the opportunity to play with us at least once a month.
Yep.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been great. I mean, it was the second time we got to talk, but I mean, maybe that first session that went down the way that it did was kismet, so we'd have a chance to talk again. Maybe it was
exactly,
fate, or maybe
Maybe
you
I'll
just
release the
liked
Snyder
talking to
cut.
us so much, and Lee Wanika, who I think you're going to propose to at any moment based on his
Only if you bring me back. Only if we
connections.
do this the third time.
I'm thinking perhaps you did trash the files the first time, so we could do this again. But
wait, I couldn't hear you. It says corrupted. What's happening here?
Exactly. So be that as it's may, anybody out there, if you want to come check us out, we'd love to have you. Give us a listen.
Yeah.
We've got some good content. We've got some good ideas, and maybe we'll give you the stuff that you need to help your next campaign be legendary.
Awesome. Just once again, thank you so much for being so game, for sharing as much as you have, and for being who you are and being part of this great community. You can find me, Zach, aka Conan_Librarian, on Twitter. That's my handle there. You can also find me at Obsidian Portal. I am an emissary. I don't work for them. I don't get a paycheck. I'm literally just a guy that really likes it. It's an amazing campaign management website where you can customize, you can build, you can program. They do campaigns of the month, even campaigns of the year. To toot my own horn, I actually won back in 2019 campaign of the year, and I got a huge swag prize. Everything from Morpheus to oh man, now I'm forgetting the list, but it's a huge community, an interactive community, and just an awesome site. So if you're looking for a place to manage and create your campaign, check out Obsidian Portal. The party doesn't just stay at the inn and at the tavern. Why should your game just stay at the table? Take it out there. So once again, thank you so much, and I look forward to episode number 3 at some point. And for just you guys being great. So guys, thank you all so much for spending your time with us, with me, with them, and go check out all the links that we're going to dump here. And it's almost midnight. I'm going to pass out, and
Yeah.
I guys, absolutely, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Zach. We appreciate
Thank
the
you.
time.
Night all.
Thank you. It's been a great time. Good night, Al.